Hello and welcome back to the Across the Pod NFL podcast, here for a Week 10 review with, as ever, your host, Andy Davis. And with me today, I've got a first timer on the podcast. With me today is NFL content creator / analyst. With me today is Dom Corbett. Dom, how are you?
I'm good, thanks, man. Thanks for having me on the pod. I'm excited. My inaugural episode. I can't wait to talk some ball.
Me too. And I met you for the first time in Dublin about 4 months ago, and you told me then about why you're a Texans fan. But for the benefit of the audience, why are you a Texans fan?
So it's a long story. I'll keep it short for the listeners because I know we're fairly limited for time. But essentially, back in the day, I was a Browns fan. And then they signed Deshaun Watson, and I couldn't root for a team that was going to do that. You got to support the quarterback. You know, like the quarterback is the team. It's not like a team in the Premier League signing a striker and you can just ignore them. Like the quarterback is literally the team. And so I had to move teams. I didn't want to move to a good team. And the Texans were terrible at the time. They had the second overall pick, I believe. No, that was the year before they had the second overall pick. My mistake. But they were terrible, really, really bad. And I've supported them ever since. And I've really enjoyed it because it's fun to support a bad team. And they've become good, but now they've kind of regressing again. So already in just a few years, I'm having a real roller coaster experience. But I'm a Texans man, born and bred, although behind me, it's mirrored. Although behind me, you will see I have a Baker Mayfield shirt kind of frame thing because he is my favorite player, which is why I initially started supporting the Browns. But that's my quick TLDR fan story, but Texans till I die.
Well, on that basis, I mean, a lot of people probably think I should no longer be a Dolphins fan. I'm definitely not in on Tua. So people probably think, listen to this podcast on that basis, maybe Andy should start supporting a different team. But, it's a good story. And I want to ask as well, have you fixed your Nico Collins jersey yet? The numbering on it?
No, mate. Honestly, man, like absolute nightmare. I've got another 50% off voucher from Fanatics. So I got with the first 50% off, I got a Malik Neighbors jersey because I was going to I went to New York to watch a Giants game. So and I got to root for the home team, obviously. So I got a Neighbors jersey, but now I don't really know what to do. Like, do I buy a proper Nico Collins jersey? Do I get a different one? I don't really know what to do, to be honest with you. I'm almost tempted to get a college one. Like a Quinn Ewers, man. Oh no, Arch Manning is what I was kind of looking at. But yeah, I'll see, man. I'll see. At the moment, no, but maybe.
Well, let's move on as we are short of time to Thursday night football. For me, I think personally one of the games of the season as the Ravens beat the Cincinnati Bengals by 35 points to 34 in what was quite simply one hell of a game. I mean, there's one point that the Bengals were way up in this game, but in the end, the Ravens got the job done. I think they were 21-13 down in the fourth quarter, came back to win this game by 35.34. Of course, right at the end, Bengals get the touchdown to what they thought were their proceedings, but then they go for 2-point conversion and they miss, much to the discretion of fans who did see a missed holding call, Mike Gesicki. Dom, first of all, your thoughts on the game and just that ending, the missed holding call on Gesicki.
So I think the one regarding the Ravens has to be that Lamar Jackson is a 3-time MVP winner, really. Like the plays that he can make are almost, dare I say, almost at that kind of like Patrick Mahomes level of like one of one. Like obviously he is a one of one in the sense that like his athletic play style and his dual threat ability, he's the best in the league at that. But just in the sense of like that literally no one else is doing it this. Like we've not seen this kind of level of play before. And from Lamar, that play where he kind of turns the potential sack or would-be sack into a at the 1 yard line to be punched in by Derrick Henry a few plays later. He's playing at an unbelievable level. And I was a Lamar doubter when he came out and he was, finding his feet, particularly as a passer. But now I think you just gotta hold your hands up and say, you know what, it's him and Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen as the clear three. And probably at this point, Lamar is QB1 this season in the league. Now with the Bengals, though, look, people aren't going to like it potentially because it's not the hot thing to say. But Joe Burrow has been playing lights out the last few weeks, mate. Like he's played seriously good ball. Now it won't be reflected because of the Bengals' overall record. But I saw a stat today, which I can't exactly quote because I don't have it to hand. But it's that the rest of the league are like 33-0 when their offense scores more than 30 points. The Bengals are like 3-4 because Joe Burrow continually puts up big stat lines, but the rest of the team can't pull through for him. So, And in this game, we finally saw Jamar Chase do that, 200 almost 50 yards, which was an insane game. But I think the Bengals offense generally has always been this kind of boom or bust, live and die by Joe Burrow. And I really question how much longer they can go on doing that with Zach Taylor as the coach. So, that's kind of it for me. And then the 2-point conversion, definitely the right decision, 100%. The way that Lamar Jackson is playing, the way that the Bengals defense has been playing, you can't have the opportunity to win the game by getting the 2-point conversion and not take it. We've seen the Buccaneers get absolutely shafted twice this season already by going to overtime and not getting to touch the ball against the Chiefs and the Falcons. So with those current overtime rules, I think if you're a worse team, which I think the Bengals are, you've got to take the chance to beat the better team by controlling your own destiny. I think the decision, though, not to target Chase in the back of the end zone, who was coming open, the man's had 200 plus yards in this game, to not hit the hot hand was questionable. But look, they went down swinging. I rated it.
I think you're right about Burrow. I mean, look at the Bengals' record. Games they've lost, they've scored 25 points against the Chiefs and lost. They scored 33 against the Commanders and lost. 38 against the Ravens first time round, loss. 17 against the Eagles, and then 34 against the Ravens again. I mean, they're scoring points. I mean, Burrow, 428 yards, had 5 touchdowns in the last game against the Ravens and didn't win that game. I think there's a stat about there's something like 800 and something yards in 2 games against Ravens. Crazy stats, and they haven't won either game. And I think that is down to the defense. The defense was a problem for them for pretty much most of Burrow's career, as well as offensive line. And I think, as you said, exactly, I think if he was playing for a 7-2 team or a 9-0 team, I think he'd be the MVP favorite. I just think, the defense has completely let him down. I think it's a shame, because I think Burrow is, I think personally, there's no one I'd want more in a 2-minute drill in the fourth quarter, driving down to win the game than Burrow, apart from maybe Mahomes. I think when you get him healthy, there's not many better. I just think for him, there's been a lot of problems around him in terms of mainly the defense, no line. And I think that's going to be, sadly, a problem until they fix that. So, yeah, it's a shame for Burrow, but this seems to be the way his career is going.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is that at the moment on defense, it's Trey Hendrickson as a one-man wrecking crew and nobody else. And you can't win games in the NFL if you can't, stop the opposing team from scoring 30 points on you and still managing to win. The offense is upholding their end of the bargain. The defense simply isn't. And I'm a big fan of the defensive coordinator, whose name escapes me at this very moment. Lou Anarumo, exactly. Thank you very much, Lou Anarumo. I was a big fan of his. He's one of those kind of like Steve Spagnuolo, like almost like a Cliff Kingsbury, the other side of the ball, someone that isn't going to get poached for being a head coach because they're just too old and they're not kind of like the trendy pick. But that means that you've got real defensive continuity, which is really, really valuable on that side of the ball, where it takes a lot of defenders quite a lot of while to kind of get up to speed, which is why someone like Jesse Minter, who is the defense coordinator of the Chargers, is such like a cool guy at the moment, because he's got the kind of new way of teaching defense. So the fact that the Bengals defense is just selling essentially the Bengals offense game in, game out must be really frustrating for Joe Burrow, and really frustrating for us as fans, because I want to see Joe Burrow in those championship games.
Yeah, me too. And I think it doesn't get any easier for him. They've got their next games involved the Chargers, a bye week, the Steelers, the Cowboys, the Titans, Browns. Then they got the Broncos and the Steelers. So there's a stretch from weeks 14 to 17 or 16, I should say, where they can win 3 games. But I think they've still got the Steelers twice, and the Broncos have been very good defensively. I do fear for the Bengals. And go back onto Lamar Jackson, a stat we found from the coverage of the game on Thursday night, where it was his 19th straight game with a touchdown pass. And it was amazing. It was the first time since week 18 in 2022 where they've been behind by more than 3 points at halftime. Moving on to Sunday, in the first game, which was in Germany, the earlier game between the Giants and the Panthers, a game that I was meant to be at, but sadly illness meant I couldn't go. Very gutted to be there, and I missed an overtime classic. 20 points to 17 win for the Panthers. This was, for me, the day of runs. This was, look at Daniel Jones, only 190 yards, 2 interceptions, 0 touchdowns. Bryce Young, 126 yards, 1 touchdown. But the running game was great on both teams. I mean, Chuba Hubbard, 28 carries, 153 yards, 1 touchdown. And then Tyrone Tracy, who did have the all-decisive fumble in overtime, but he did have 103 yards, 1 touchdown, an incredible long players well involved in that game. I mean, we know both teams aren't good, and there was often talk about whether this is going to be two bad teams makes a bad game, or sometimes you can have two bad teams actually makes a good game. And we got a good game. Overtime, I believe, just the second ever international game which had overtime. I think the last one was the Bengals against back then the Redskins in 2015 in London. So yeah, I think the fans who were last year in Germany got the best game ever on paper and internationally in Chiefs Dolphins. This year they get the worst game on paper, but they get the best game out of the two. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. I missed the first half, but I did catch second half. And what I saw from a brief glimpse of the game was I thought Bryce Young showed a lot of maturity. I thought I saw him in the pocket, just looked a lot more composed. I'm fully aware that he is playing a bad team, and I know, the Saints and Giants isn't really a metric on whether you're improving or not. But I think certainly to be on the field like he hasn't been in recent times, and to make some poised passes, just seem a lot more composed in the pocket. I felt for me was just, I think for Panthers fan, I think that for me is almost better than the win. Just to see him actually look competent and not look like a deer in the headlights. But Dom, what was your thoughts on the game?
So with Bryce Young, to kind of pick up where you left off there, he is looking like a different player compared to the one that started this season for the Panthers, where he was jumping to throw the ball, he was bailing out of clean pockets, he was inaccurate, he was sailing balls over wide open receivers' heads into the sideline, or worse, into defenders' hands for interceptions. He was unplayable and was rightly benched. But we're seeing now this kind of renaissance, this resurgence of his career. And it seems to have really helped him because it's taken the spotlight off him. After 3-4 weeks, all everyone could talk about, I know that was the case with me, is Bryce Young's got to be benched. This is unacceptable, la, 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 la. That kind of spotlight's been shifted. And I think we've seen definitely a shift in public opinion as a result. Now everyone wants to love Bryce Young. I think everyone did as well, to be fair. I'm not trying to be unfair about the media a little bit here, because they were only critiquing his play style and his actual on-field performance, which was terrible. But now obviously we're seeing him smile on the sidelines. Everyone's like, oh my God, love seeing Bryce Young being happy. And to be honest, who doesn't? I don't think anyone, the Panthers aren't exactly like a Cowboys powerhouse where people love to hate them. They're just kind of like a bit of an NPC team almost, the Panthers. And so Bryce Young kind of turning around his career potentially is a massive, massive storyline for them. And I think in the game against the Giants here, you saw that confidence. He was throwing with much more confidence, much more poise in the pocket. He was managing the pocket a lot better. And we were even beginning to see one or two plays, particularly the Jatavian Sanders touchdown in the back of the end zone, where he was able to kind of ad-lib like we saw him do all the time in Alabama. And that was a massive reason why I had Bryce Young as my QB1 coming out of that draft, because he was able to make those plays out of structure, had that X-factor ability that we see the likes of, Lamar, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes. And I know that's lofty praise, but I'm only using that in the case of can they do things out of structure? Can they make plays that they're not meant to? And Bryce Young, Alabama, was doing that every week. Now, we've not seen that in the NFL at all, but to be potentially beginning to see that is massive for Bryce Young, because really that was his selling point. He doesn't have the physical tools. He doesn't have the height. We know that. He doesn't have the arm. We've seen that firsthand. He did have that ability, that kind of uncoachable X-factor ability. Now, there's a case of, will that ever translate to the NFL? We don't know. I'm not saying that just because we saw one throw to a wide open tight end in the end zone that we can start crowning Bryce Young again as this potential franchise quarterback. But I think at the very least, Bryce Young has staved off those that potential, let's bench him and move on from him at the very end of this season. Let's definitely replace him this offseason. I think that the Panthers really looking at this quarterback class probably shouldn't, and they should stick with Bryce Young. It's a bit bold, but that's what I think they should do, at least at this point in the season.
Well, someone who's not been kept on is the Bears offensive coordinator, Shane Waldron, as he was relieved today of his duties as the Bears offensive coordinator. This is after their 19-3 loss to the New England Patriots at the start of our 6 p.m. slate on Sunday just gone. The Bears, for me, it's a weird one, because the first 3-4 weeks of the season, I was certainly questioning Caleb Williams, is he a bust, and all that kind of stuff. And then we see him, turn it up, and we saw him, especially in person in London, having a great time. And he had four touchdowns, some amazing scrambling plays, and we all thought at that point the Bears are here. They could be a playoff team, and the Bears are going to be, he is the guy. But then it seems to have gone back again to being a bit of a car crash again. And Matt Eberflus's probably, I think we can all say now he's definitely on the hot seat. And I think with all the talent around him for first overall pick, for it not to work out like it has, I think he's got to be in that probably the hottest hot seat, apart from maybe Mike McCarthy going into the approaching Black Monday. And for me, it's gone back almost to what it was before the London Games. And yeah, it has been poor. And I think, we said it in the preview to the Bears season that if you got a first overall pick for a 7-9 team who's just gone out and got Keenan Allen, already got Cole Kmet, DJ Moore, and got JohndreAndre Swift in as well. I mean, there's no excuses for them not to at least be competitive and challenging for the playoffs. I think Shane Waldron is the first calamity of that. What was your take on first of all, just overall the Shane Waldron firing?
So at the moment, before this firing, I would say it was the worst vibes in Chicago possible. And that's saying something considering what we've seen from Chicago in recent years with their quarterback, debacles, frankly. So, and the reason why it was so bad is because the expectations were so high. This team was 4-2. Like you say, they came out of London, the Bears, and they were coming out of a good win against Jacksonville, who we now know to be terrible, but they're nevertheless a hard game in London against the Jags. And they've just been in a tailspin ever since. Absolute tailspin. It's been a calamity on the field, frankly. DJ Moore was walking off the field in the middle of plays. Yeah, he claimed he was hurt, and there's this whole issue of, once you've got out of bounds, you can't then come back in bounds. So, but to walk and sit on the bench during a play while the play is still going on is mind-boggling to me. I think his usage has been awful. He is much more of a yards after the catch, kind of in line with a Puka Nacua kind of player, where you get him in motion off the line of scrimmage and you get the ball in his hands and he can make things happen. He's being used now like a traditional X wide receiver, which doesn't make sense when they've got Rome Odunze, who fits that bill so much better than DJ Moore does. Keenan Allen, I think, is, unfortunately, the preseason rumors are maybe kind of true. He might be a little bit kind of past his prime, dare I say maybe a bit washed, but regardless, he should be the 3. Rome Odunze should be the 1, the X receiver. DJ Moore should be that complimentary yak receiver. And Keenan Allen should be that sort of receiver who can bail you out if the other 2 guys are covered. For some reason, Shane Waldron didn't want to do that. He wanted to misuse all of those receivers. There's this play that happened in the Cardinals game, not even talking about the Scurry Mary where the Cardinals are able to run for 35 yards in the final seconds of the second half, or the Hail Mary against Washington. For me, when I realized that this is over or needs to be over, is when on 4th down at the beginning of the 4th quarter against the Cardinals, they went for it on 4th down. On 4th and 10, the Bears, no 4th down model, which there are loads of. Even the NFL's own next-gen stats said to not go for it. They're down 2 scores. They've got the ball. There's a whole quarter left. They got their timeout. And what happened was Caleb Williams took a massive sack, put the Cardinals on the Bears' 40-yard line. And yes, part of that is absolutely on Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams is a rookie quarterback making rookie quarterback mistakes at the moment. But I cannot believe that a coach is not telling his rookie quarterback, hey, Caleb, if nobody's open, do not take a sack, throw this thing out of bounds. Better, you know what? You can even throw a pick, make it an arm punt. You cannot take a sack. You cannot take a sack. And to not be told that, or to not have that go in, is just mental to me. So I think the firing is absolutely right. I think the whole Bears organization needs to go. And the unfortunate thing is that unfortunately the Bears have wasted a year of Caleb Williams' career because they wanted to keep a lame duck head coach in Matt Eberflus. And now Caleb Williams has to learn another offensive scheme, play with another offensive coordinator, and that takes time to come into that. So it was something that I think most of us could see coming from the beginning of this season. And coaching is to blame. I don't think Caleb Williams is. I think he's a great talent. So for me, it's the right decision. Get rid.
Well, for more on Dom's take on the Bears, you can actually hear it on his appearance on the Nat Coombs show last week. I was listening to it at the gym the other day, having a great listen to that. So, yeah, you can talk about more. You can hear him talk about the Bears more situation there on that show. I mean, great episode that was.
Thank you very much.
Other games that happened on Sunday, the Bills had a 30-20 win over the Indianapolis Colts to grab even more of a hold on that division. The Vikings scored no touchdowns, but no problem. They beat the Jaguars by 12 points to 7. And the New Orleans Saints beat the Atlanta Falcons by 20 points to 17. Of course, I mentioned it last time. A few friends of the show were there for the game. Jay Lawrence, Cam Hogwood, the boys from the Irish NFL show, or Pro Football Ireland, I should say, Michael McQuaid and Mark. And what a game that was as well. And in the 49ers, despite Jake Moody missing 3 field goals, Jake Moody scored a winning field goal as they beat the Buccaneers by 22 points to 20. And Mike Williams scored on his Steelers debut to win the game as the Steelers ended the Commanders' hot streak by 28 points to 27. But the next game we want to touch a little bit on was the Kansas City Chiefs against the Denver Broncos, an AFC West matchup, as the Broncos had the chance to end the Chiefs' unbeaten streak and to lift the champagne glasses of all the 1972 Miami Dolphins team. But fortunately, that kick was blocked and the Chiefs remain unbeaten. I mean, there was a stat going around on Red Zone at the time of the coverage that they were had the lowest differential for 9-0 teams in the NFL. I mean, looking at in terms of the point differential, they have the lowest point differential in history. For any team that started the season 9-0, they're plus 58, 2 less than the plus 60 from the Colts back in 2006. You touched it on your TikTok video the other day about them being a really bad-looking, unbeaten team. You got to give them credit. They're winning games, and that right now is this important thing. You don't win Super Bowls by how you play in Week 9. You win them down the stretch in the playoffs. So the fact that they're playing not well, had this stat about the differential, and they're still 9-0, should be, I think, a scary message to the rest of the league.
Definitely. I mean, like you say, you don't get style points for wins in the NFL. Like, there's no pictures when you look at the tables of the wins and the losses and who's got the first overall draft pick and who's going to go to the Super Bowl. But having said that, though, I do think that there's two different things at play here, right? I think that the Chiefs are definitely looking the worst they've looked under Patrick Mahomes, and they're still 9-0 because of Patrick Mahomes, because of Andy Reid, because they've made signings like DeAndre Hopkins, and they've got Travis Kelce kind of not playing like he used to play in terms of multiple years ago, but definitely still being a serviceable, almost a glorified slot receiver, really. And people are making those memes and those jokes being like, oh, Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs are sacrificing the state of Missouri, and they're doing like, blood magic on the sidelines to get these wins. But this win, with the blocked field goal, it was a blocked field goal, not a missed field goal. So it wasn't down to luck. And Leo Chenal, the linebacker for the Chiefs, absolutely blew up some guy on field goal block. And it was egregious. Like, explodes right through him, pushes him back. And really what's quite interesting is, so I used to play, and at one point these coaches from America, UC Davis, they came over and did like a coaching clinic, and we had to try and block field goals. And they said that the most important thing on a potential field goal block is, can you keep your eyes open? Because it's your human natural instinct to, when something's kicked right at you like a really quick football, is to blink, and then you can't block the ball because it's going so quickly. And it's really hard to keep your eyes open and try and find where that ball is. And Leo Chenal, not only does he drive that poor bloke back, puts him right in the dirt, but then is able to, in one move, because it takes 2 seconds to kick a field goal, he then dives and blocks the field goal. And it's just an amazing play. And, you get that, it's that classic phrase, right? Like, special teams, special players, special plays. That's kind of true here. That won them the game. Now, did they deserve to win it? Probably not. But look, good teams win scrappy games. Are there shades of the Pittsburgh Steelers losing, never heard of her, kind of Chase Claypool whole, season? When was that? Like 2019, 2020, something like that, I want to say, when they went undefeated and were exposed as big frauds, a bit like the Eagles maybe at the end of last season when they had their tailspin. Is it quite that bad? No. But I do think, though, that the Chiefs are looking mortal in the sense that I think a team can beat them. But someone just has to take the chance, ultimately.
Yeah, and I think, if I'm honest, I'm being a little bit of a spoiler into our next episode where we do our preview to Week 11. But I do think the best chance is the Bills. I mean, the Bills have notoriously struggled against them in the playoffs. But in the regular season, I believe Josh Allen has the most wins of any quarterback against Mahomes. So I can't think whether it's in Buffalo or in Kansas City, but I think the Bills are a good team despite some of their flaws. I think they could easily go into the Arrowhead or Buffalo, beat the Chiefs, and then lose in the wildcard round. But for me, I think what I thought was really impressive for me, where there was a third down, I think it was 3rd and 13 in the third quarter, and they only ended up in a field goal. But there was Mahomes, he shrugged off a tackle, found Kelce in first down territory, and then they got that field goal from it. And I think that in the end helped within the game, and I think that they aren't playing well, but I think moments like that where they're finding the first down gains in really difficult situations and narrowly getting points on the board, I think chipping away at it, I think that shows often what good teams do. I mean, oftentimes, you don't play well every week. Sometimes the best teams don't always play well. Man City don't always play well, Barcelona in their heyday never always played well, but they got the job done sometimes in hard games. So I think for me, yeah, they're rolling, they're 9-0, and they can't really complain. But I still think the Ravens beat them in the playoffs. That's my. I said this at the start of the season. I still think it's Lamar's time this year. Other games that we are short of time, but quickly we'll go through as the Chargers beat the Titans 27-17. The Cardinals beat the Jets 31-6. And the Eagles beat the Cowboys 34-6 in one of the worst late Sunday slates ever in Redwood history. All games were done at halftime. And then quickly, the Dolphins finally won a game, their first since October. They beat the Rams by 23 points to 15 in a Anthony Weaver masterclass. But finally, the game involving your team, Sunday Night Football. Again, what a game this was. Really was one of the weirdest, most enjoyable games I've ever watched. I mean, you had Jared Goff having his career most interceptions in the game with 5. It seemed like at one point every other play there was a fumble or a turnover or interception from both Stroud or Goff. And the best part of the game for me was when second half starts. They're talking to Dan Campbell in his halftime interview. He's talking about, I think they were down quite a lot at halftime. I want to get the actual proper.
It was like 19 points, I think, something like that.
Yeah, that's right. And Dan Campbell said in his interview with Katie Hartung, I think it was, we got to get some sort of turnover. And as he's saying that, off his films prior to the second half starting, they get the turnover. It was a hell of a game, and there was so much talk about this game, and we are short of time, but obviously yourself probably think differently to me, but that was a really, really enjoyable game.
Yeah, I think very differently. It was thoroughly, thoroughly unenjoyable. At the moment, I think I said it when the Texans were 6-2. We were not as good as our record at all. And the offensive line woes, I think, were perfectly encapsulated by our own offensive lineman causing CJ Stroud to fumble the ball. I don't know what that guy was doing. He realized at that point that he has free will and he could kind of do whatever the hell he likes and just decided to strip his own quarterback. But we don't have a good offensive line. I think we do struggle with the receivers that we have. And I think that really our offensive woes kind of fall at the feet of Bobby Slowick at the moment because we've got a good offense. Well, we don't have a good offensive line, sorry. But we do have CJ Stroud, who I think is a good quarterback. And we do have Nico Collins, who I think is one of the best receivers in the league, and Tank Dell as well. And his play calling drives me insane. It did last year. And basically, to give context, he loves running on essentially 2nd and 3rd and long, basically. So 2nd and 10, 3rd and 9. He loves running on those downs where in the NFL generally these days you don't run it because there's such a prowess of passing at the moment. It's not like the 1980s. And I thought initially last year that was because CJ Stroud's a rookie. He wants to put him in 3rd and manageable. He doesn't want to put put him under a lot of pressure. But he's still doing that this year. We ran it on 3rd and 10 and then on 2nd and 9. And those runs went nowhere. It's an insane play call to me. So, Bobby Slowick was kind of hot hand. He was in the kind of coach circuit maybe, and I really wanted us to keep him. But honestly, at this point, I'm not really seeing the vision at the moment with Bobby Slowick. And I think we have a great quarterback and we should be better than we are. I think our record is actually quite generous to the on-field product at the moment with the Texans. And it was brutal, man. So not win a game when the opposing quarterback has 5 interceptions, it just beggars belief. It was an embarrassing loss is what I would sum it up as. And things got to change in Houston if we want to make any sort of playoff push, which, look, I'm not hopeful for, but we should win our terrible division at the very least.
Yeah, I think that's going to be your thing because we've seen with the other 3 teams in that division, the Titans, the Colts, and I've actually forgotten the 3rd team, the Jags, in that. They are a very good team. I think you'll make the playoffs. I think you'll probably be the 4th seed in that playoffs. But yeah, I think the loss of Diggs, I think, is proving a bit crucial. I think since he's gone down, it hasn't quite been the same. But I think one thing I found in this game was crucial was that, Stroud had, 14 from 20 in the first half, 164 yards, 1 touchdown, 0 picks. And then second half, had, I think, between 50 and 60 yards passing, 2 interceptions, 0 touchdowns. And then on the flip side, the Lions on their offense had just 23 yards rushing the entire first half, but ended the day with 105 yards. So I think we saw a massive shift in terms of the Lions' run game. Definitely elevated that second half with David Montgomery and Jameer Gibbs. And then on the flip side, I think Stroud the offense slowed down massively, and I think that obviously allowed the Lions to get back. And I think, There were struggles in the line secondary from Terry and Arnold. I thought he had a really tough day, but I think Jaden Petrie on the other side of the secondary had a really good game. But I still don't know how this game was won by the Lions. I thought, 7-1. I thought they're going to lose at some point. We see a lot of teams go 7-1 and have these off days, and I thought that was going to be it for the Lions. But they roll on and go 8-1. And I think they've showed to me a team that did collapse in the title game last year against the Niners. I think this is the game for me that shows that they've learned from this. They have learned how to deal with adversity, and I think this is only going to make them stronger. And I think this Lions team, I said Packers start of the year to win the NFC, but I'm starting to think maybe it's the Lions. Maybe it's their time. Maybe it's a Lions-Ravens Super Bowl, because this Lions team just seems to have everything. They seem to, right now, either completely obliterate teams or seem to find a way to win games when it's going tough. And I think that's what you want from a team when it's going tough, to find ways to win. Obviously, as well, the Texans lost it themselves. Same thing against the Jets last week. But at the same time, the Lions keep rolling, and they're 8-1 for the second best record in the NFL. But that is where we will end the podcast for today. Shorter one than normal, so apologies, listeners and viewers, for that. But it's been great, Dom, having you on for your first appearance on the show.
Thanks for having me. I mean, who doesn't love talking a bit of ball on a Tuesday afternoon, and lovely weather at the moment. It's lovely and dark. So yeah, no, it's been great, man. I had a great time. Thanks for having me on.
And for those who haven't yet come across your work, Dom, how can they find you on socials?
At Dom Corbett NFL, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. You'll see the best takes you could possibly imagine on there. I'm never wrong about anything. And I have my own podcast as well on Sportsmanlike Conduct, which is on YouTube and Spotify, not on Apple Podcasts, because I've never been bothered to upload it there. So I'm not as good as a podcast host as you are, Mr. Davies. But that's where you can find me. If you want to hear more of my takes, then feel free. If not, that's also fine too.
Great stuff. So yeah, that is the end of our Week 10 review, and we will be heading to our Week 11 preview later in the week. We should be having a returning guest, a fan favourite in Freddie Harper-Davis will be returning to the show to preview what is an excellent week, which has Eagles Commanders, Bills Chiefs, and many other cracking games. But this has been the Across the Pod NFL podcast with, as ever, your host, Andy Davis, with our guest today, Dom Corbett, and we'll see you guys next